I came to Kenya with a big vision, to build and to innovate. But after living here for the last 2 years, I understood that I was wrong in my way of thinking when I first came here. After observing people like Aliko Dangote, Masiyiwa, and Mohamed Dewji, I started slowly to understand what business on the continent is really about. And it's not about building the next flashy tech startup, it's more about supplying the basic needs, being close with the people and solving real-world problems at a scale. I'm Marvin, and 2 years ago I moved from Germany to Kenya, and ever since I've been traveling and learning how life and business on the continent really works. When I first came to Kenya, in my head I brought ideas with me that were mainly about bringing another tech solution, bringing some kind of service or product that used to work very well in Europe or in the States, and just implementing it in the Kenyan market. But my way of thinking was wrong, and after a while I started to understand, I started to observe people that I mentioned before, like Dangote, Masiyiwa, and Mohamed Dewji. And after spending 2 years here in Kenya and also traveling through various African countries, I started to see that problems that everyday people have here all the time are still not solved. These are businesses like food, housing, telecom, and medicine. So after a while I started to pay a bit more attention to people who build businesses in these sectors, to learn from them, to see what other basic problems there are to be solved. Therefore, I want to share the story of 5 African entrepreneurs with you, that you can understand the way I'm thinking right now, and that you understand where problems might need to be solved. If I start with the first one, it's probably someone all of you know. He's Africa's richest man, and he just built Africa's largest oil refinery. His name is Aliko Dangote, and he also started with a very small trading business. In his early beginnings, he also traded basic commodities like sugar, rice, and salt. Later on in his business career, he understood that Nigeria and the other African countries are still relying too much on imports. And therefore, he started at some point building factories that produce these basic commodities, which is like sugar, salt, and he started flour milling as well. And later on, of course, he also ventured into cement industry, and now his biggest and latest venture is the oil refinery. Through these ventures, he also is able to support the local communities, is creating thousands of jobs. He's also creating entirely new supply chains locally. For me, he is just a great example how he built one of Africa's greatest business empires just by focusing on the basic needs. Because he was not bringing any flashy tech startup, he was not creating any kind of app, he was really providing people with the basics, and that at a scale. The next person that inspired me even to start thinking this way is Tanzania's youngest billionaire. His name is Mohamed Dewji, and he also made a fortune with supplying and manufacturing the basic needs of their people. He also took over his family's trading business, what already made at the time quite a good revenue. I think it was $30 million at the time. But before, they also started just by selling sugar, and this also on a very small scale. So when he took over the business, he managed to grow this business to over $1 billion in revenue. And this again, not by bringing in any tech solutions. He was also purely focusing on similar things than Dangote. They also started flour milling, they started factories for sugar, rice, and many, many more. He also is planning to be the biggest farmer on the African continent. So they are working in, I think, 30 plus industries right now, and his focus is also to make things accessible, affordable, and this for every single person. And there was one interview I watched where he was also explaining the way of his thinking. He said his focus is to produce products that are first of affordable, accessible, and that people need in their everyday lives. Another good example this time is from Zimbabwe, and his name is Masiyiwa. He changed the telecom industry of Zimbabwe. He used to be an electrical engineer and started his first business with just $75. After his company grew, he was able to start Econet Wireless, what is a big telecom provider in Zimbabwe. But at this time in Zimbabwe, there was a state monopoly of the telecom industry, so it was very much not accessible, it was not working properly, and his mission was to supply everybody and give everybody access to the telecom industry so that they can make phone calls at affordable rates, that they can get internet connections at affordable rates. And this was his pure mission. But he had to fight in court for 5 years to make it possible because the state, of course, didn't want to give up his monopoly. Fast forward to today, now he made mobile access available for millions of people. He created and supports over 100,000 jobs. And he also backs a lot of educational initiatives. The next example is Ashish Thakkar, who got born and raised in Uganda. His story is also as incredible as the other ones. He started by simply selling computer parts in Uganda when there was no access to any of these things. He was one of the first ones locating gaps and just supplying what people were in need of. After a while, he understood that many people have the same problem as him because he always had to fly to foreign countries to bring in the goods to sell. So he started to support other vendors who were having the same struggles. So he started to finance them on a small scale, and therefore his business grew. Fast forward to today, they have 22 countries they're operating in. They're even producing smartphones that are accessible and affordable in the African continent. I think they have operations in Rwanda and South Africa and producing smartphones locally. In addition to that, they also focus very heavily on the mission they have that Africa should be self-sustaining by entrepreneurship. So therefore they have operations, as said, in 22 countries, supporting in each of these countries African entrepreneurs that want to do something. They give them funding, they teach them and educate them. And therefore you see, he started a very small business just supplying where was a gap, and now he ventured into educating and supporting other entrepreneurs on their journey to make them self-sustaining and not rely on any other foreign support. There's another beautiful example from Nigeria, and her name is Dr. Stella Okoli. She started in 1977 a pharmaceutical company where she was just reselling pharmaceutical products. But what she understood very quickly is that the products they imported from foreign countries are just too expensive and don't give everybody the access they need to these products. During that time, she also lost her son due to the lack of affordable medication, and this inspired her to start the business she's doing up to today. What her main focus was to make medicine affordable. She started by just producing one product that was a pain reliever, and now she has over 120 products. She's locally producing and also ventured in multiple African countries. She built one of West Africa's largest pharmaceutical companies and even exporting products throughout the entire African continent with just a simple mission of making products that everybody needs, accessible and affordable. So we see on each of these examples that no one of them had the mission to just build something and build up wealth. All of them were actually solving a problem where there was a real world need. And today I can understand that I came to Kenya in the beginning with a very much Western mindset. Now, after living here for a while and exploring different opportunities, talking to many people and reading and observing stories like these we just talked about, and that we have to solve different problems than maybe in a different country. I worked also with a couple of startups here on the ground in Kenya, and I made my experiences. Even when I had the technical knowledge, I knew how things worked in Europe and in the Western countries. I got also taught a lot by working with the locals to make the best out of both worlds. If there's something I learned from my personal experience now, and also after observing people that we just talked about, and there are many more examples like this, is that business doesn't always need to be something very unique and very new. It just needs to solve a real world problem. And this just by giving people access to the things that I don't have access to yet, and just make things more affordable and accessible. And this is not just a lesson in business, this is also a huge mindset shift for me. Most success stories I heard before, they're about like fast businesses, they're about like tech businesses, whatever kind of tech businesses. But now I see a different approach to the things that are actually working here as a real world example. So if you are starting a business in any African country, ask yourself this: what do people do on a daily basis, and can you make it better, cheaper, or more accessible for the masses?